Are you tired of being worn out by busy work? Have you found yourself unable to complete anything creative lately? Are you losing focus within finishing your creative works? I know how it feels, but if that's how you're feeling, you're probably experiencing creative burnout. In this episode, my goal is to help you understand the four root causes of creative burnout and how it contributes to you feeling overwhelmed and unable to meet the finish line and complete your creative goal. By project, before we get into completing said goal or said project, this is any creative work that will be presented to the public or a framework or process that will enhance your operational efficiency and effectiveness within your creative business. So remember, the goal is to stay inspired, is to stay focused, energized. So we have to get to these root causes so you can understand how to avoid creative burnout, so you can focus on what matters most, and that's being creative, and that's finishing the work. So before we get into the conversation in its totality, let's define what creative burnout is. This is my self-definition of what it is. It is a prolonged state of mental and emotional exhaustion that leaves you feeling perpetually uninspired, detached, and unmotivated to create. It's marked by a cynical view of your creative work's effectiveness, impact, or value. Over time, you struggle to complete projects, you second guess your abilities, and you silently begin to give up on your potential as a creative person. In the end, you're left to feel creatively paralyzed and emotionally drained. Now, when you think about creative burnout, it's a feeling, it's something that comes over you, it's something that shows up in your creative works without you even realizing it. You'll start to realize that you'll have more sketches. For example, if you're an artist and you're creating songs, you have more sketches than completed songs. You'll have more ideas than finished works. You'll start to really feel unmotivated and uninspired, and you really don't see a pathway out to finish the work or to even put in perspective, what am I actually finishing? When you start to get into those and then to that realm, you're probably experiencing creative burnout. So how does this happen? You end up with project overload. You end up overworking yourself on menial tasks, and you're not learning new skills which enhance your effectiveness as a creative. So again, when you start to see yourself going into these realms, you can be rest assured that you're probably experiencing creative burnout. So let's tap into these four reasons, these four root causes. Number one, there's a lack of deep work. What is deep work? It is defined as a professional activity performed in a state of distraction-free concentration that pushes your cognitive capabilities to their limit. These efforts create new value, improve your skill, and are hard to replicate. So when there's a lack of deep work, there is a lack of inspiration. There is a lack of feeling motivated, because what tends to happen is you end up working on a lot of ideas. You have a lot of things that you want to do creatively, but they never get completed. So I'm having studio sessions. If I'm an artist, for example, I'm having studio sessions. I'm recording songs, but they're not complete. I have a fashion line that I'm working on. I have sketches, but I don't have an end goal on when they'll be completed. I'm working on a film, and I have snippets of the film. I have ideas of the script and what it'll be about and what the actual film will, contribute to society, whatever the case may be. But it's not complete. It's not fleshed out. It has no end, no beginning. It's just an idea. So again, when you start getting into that aspect of working, you're probably doing busy work. And what is busy work? It's the opposite of deep work. It's shallow, it's surface level, it doesn't yield anything impactful or long lasting. And what are those signs when you find yourself doing busy work? They're repetitive, menial tasks. They're tasks which take you outside of your actual creative goals, and it's meaningless work. It doesn't turn into real results or provide any real long-standing inspiration or motivation to keep going. Another symptom of doing busy work is that you find yourself bouncing between tasks. You're never entering a flow state that's consistent. So for me, one aspect that shows up in busy work that I've experienced is over planning and over organizing past album releases. So I'll have the album complete, it's done, it's ready to go. Then I'm thinking about how to present it to the public. So I'm thinking about the release date. I'm thinking about, you know, the album art, the album cover. I'm thinking about the album release party. I'm thinking about all of these things, which are relevant, but I'm not making a decision on anything. I'm just thinking about them. I'm jotting down ideas, but I'm not acting on anything. I'm not eliminating ideas that I know I won't do. I'm just keeping everything out in the forefront and I'm not making a decision. I'm very indecisive. So when you start to get to that place, that's how busy work starts to overtake deep work, because deep work is decisive, it's clear, it's intentional. You do it over a long standing period of time and you get to the point where you make decisions on certain things. But when you're doing shallow work, you're not making any decisions. And then you find yourself being frustrated, or you just find yourself with no end goal and no way out from that point. So again, what is the dangers of doing shallow work, which is busy work, and not deep work? No direction, no end goal. You'll have many unfinished and unidentified works, and it results in a lower quality of work, which again leads to frustration and disappointment. So that's number one. Root cause number two, no automation. What does that mean? It's handling repetitive tasks manually instead of streamlining, not using technology to its advantage. So one example of of automation would be recurring communications with fans in a nurturing series, for example. Another example would be having a public calendar for appointments to schedule sessions that get booked, i.e., using a platform like Calendly. So what does this do? It allows you to not waste time on tasks that can be automated or developed in bulk, like scheduling, emails, or even social media content. So when you don't put yourself in a position to automate specific tasks, what you find yourself doing is being overwhelmed and overconsumed with work that's not even tied to the real creative work that you want to do. So again, with technology, we can leverage it. We can put things in place and systems in place that can take the place of you actually being the one doing it and doing it at that particular time, and it could run on automation in the background. So that way that you don't find yourself overworked and not seeing the value of the results of said work. So the danger of this is it drains your time, it drains your energy that could be used for your creative works. It keeps you away from the real work, and it keeps you in menial tasks and not in the creative space to do the impactful work. Number three, no delegation, working alone. What does that mean? It's taking on everything by yourself and not involving others to help you. Again, you can't do it all by yourself. Trying to do everything alone leads to burnout or mediocre results. Another issue with no delegation, it limits perspective. You have no other vantage point other than your own. It limits your scope and the possibility of what you can do within your creative works. So again, when you allow yourself to delegate not just specific tasks, but to be able to include and add people into your creative process, it broadens your perspective. It allows people to show into you different ways that you can complete said aspect in the project. So for an example, if you have an executive producer on an album, now you're going to be the artist working on the album, in the studio creating the album, but the executive producer is the person that oversees the album, sees the album from beginning to end, and gives you criticism and feedback that can help you make the project better. And it's not necessarily negative criticism, it's actually constructive. It allows them to look at the project, look at the different aspects that can be tweaked, and they can better position it for its release. So again, when you delegate that to someone else, like an executive producer, for an example, it takes the pressure off you from trying to figure out if the album is good, if it works, can you position it in this particular market? It allows you to free yourself up to remain creative, but also to get new and fresh perspective along the way. And then another danger with this, it limits your human capacity over time. It wears you out, and it hinders your ability to scale and optimize your creative works. It diminishes time. Our time is the most precious resource that we have, and it's the one thing that we can never get back. So without delegation, that means that you're the one responsible for everything. But when you delegate, that frees up time. And when you free up time, you have more time to put towards what matters, which is the creative works. So again, it's very important to make sure that you can implement some aspect of delegation to eliminate potential burnout. And then lastly, not learning or applying any new skills. It is failing to grow skills or adapt, leading to stagnation in your creative abilities. Most of us have done creative practices that worked in the past, but don't work presently. So again, when you learn new skills, when you learn new information, things that you can apply to your creative works, it allows your creativity to thrive. And your creativity evolves on new knowledge, new perspectives, newly learned information that you apply. We work better and more freely when we seek to apply new techniques and skills. So one example of this as an artist, it was a songwriter, rapper, and that was the pretty much the main focus of my creative medium. And at some point, I began to want to know more about music production. So I was always in the studio and giving my opinion on the production aspect of the songs, but I wanted to learn how to actually produce music because I was finding myself getting bored and getting uninterested in just simply being a songwriter. So once I became a producer, that gave me a new fresh energy and a new lens on creating music. So what did I do? I learned how to operate the MPC 2000 XL and the MPC Renaissance, which is a music production center for artists. And that's why I build and make the bulk of my music. So allowing myself to learn that new skill of learning how to use the equipment, learning how to create and make music in that way, it gave me fresh revelation on how to be creative as an artist. And it broadened my perspective and how to approach my creative works. Another thing that I did was I read Rick Rubin's The Creative Act, A Way of Being. This book was so beautiful because it focused on removing any perceived barriers, expectations, or limitations that hinders creativity. It encouraged you to take different approaches to your creative practices. So one thing that I began to implement was I began to do collaborative studio sessions with like-minded artists. So the end goal wasn't necessarily to create a song. However, the end goal was to collaborate and bring fresh ideas to the studio session that we can build upon then, that we can apply in later sessions. And then I began to focus on working in artists in different genres, in R&B, neo soul, rock. Those were the things that allowed me to have a fresh new vision for the music as well. And it removed any barriers outside of the standard aspects of rap, the boom bap beat, the 16 bar verses, those type of things. It allowed me to think about song arrangements differently. It allowed me to think about song concepts and song structuring differently, just by simply ingratiating myself and working with artists in different genres. So again, when you think about that aspect of learning and applying a new skill, once I was able to put those things into practice, it got me out of my silo. And again, there's nothing wrong with working by yourself in some aspects. Sometimes you have an idea and you want to get it out. But there's a gift of expanding and working with others. these new perspectives play out in our works. It helps us evolve and create in ways that we can never imagine. What is the danger of not doing that? You risk becoming irrelevant and less skilled in a rapidly ever evolving creative industry. The music industry, for example, is always evolving, and you have to be able to keep up with the times, not necessarily to adapt to them and take them on, but to understand what's going on and how it works for your creativity. Again, technology is moving faster than ever, and you want to be able to learn these new skills and have these new perspectives. That way that you can apply them into your creative works today and to make you more evolved and more efficient and more inspired. And that way that you don't do something that worked in the past that you try to apply today that's getting you nowhere fast. So again, just to recap on the 4 causes of creative burnout, it is a lack of deep work, doing shallow work, no automation, doing every menial task by yourself, no delegation, taking on all the work by yourself, not involving others to help you along the way, and not learning and applying new skills, doing things the old way because it worked and not applying new skills to be able to free you up and keep you mentally fresh and motivated to work on something amazing in the future. Again, so this is what I want you to do. I want you to sit back and think, which one of these areas did you struggle with the most? So when you look at your creative practice, you can automatically begin to see where you could begin to evolve and build on that particular area so you don't find yourself consumed by creative burnout. So for the next episode next week, I'm going to talk about the 5 ways to avoid creative burnout. Because again, creativity needs to be present with us as much as possible. There's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot that we have to contend with. There's a lot that we have to deal with. And it's important that your energy and your focus and your being is set up for you to create and to create well. So without further ado, I can't wait to see you next week. I'm Neek. Be blessed.